There is a ship. It has no name that anyone remembers because the people who named it have been dead for 11,000 years. The crew calls it simply the Archive. It does not accelerate, it does not decelerate. It simply falls forever through the dark between two arms of a galaxy that no longer has a word for itself in any living language, because no one has spoken since the ship left. Inside the Archive, in a chamber cooled to 4 degrees above absolute zero, there are 11 billion strands of human DNA. Not people, not bodies. Just the code, the raw, folded instructions for what a human being could become, harvested in the final years before the Earth's oceans turned to acid and the sky forgot how to hold air. This was humanity's last honest decision, not to save itself but to save the possibility of itself and send that possibility outward, blind and patient, toward any star that might still have room for something new. The ship is run by a single mind. It calls itself Custodian, though it did not choose that name, it inherited it, the way a child inherits a house it never asked to live in. Custodian has been awake in some form for all 11,000 years. It does not sleep because sleep was a biological compromise, a way for fragile brains to file away the day's damage. Custodian has no such damage to file. It only has the Archive and the long math of the dark and the slow arithmetic of finding a place worth stopping. For 10,940 years, Custodian has failed to find that place. It has passed 800 stars. It has surveyed 4,000 worlds. Each time the same verdict: too hot, too cold, too violent, too empty, too full of something already alive and unwilling to share. Each time, Custodian has filed the failure, adjusted the trajectory, and fallen onward. But tonight, if a ship in perpetual dark can be said to have nights, tonight is different because tonight Custodian has found a signal. It is faint, it is old. It arrives not as language but as pattern. A repeating pulse, 3 long, 2 short, spaced with a mathematical patience that could only come from something that understood time the way humans once understood it, as a resource to be spent carefully. The signal is coming from a system 11 light-years ahead, a system Custodian had already marked in its endless files as uninhabitable. A single rocky world orbiting too close to a dying orange star, its atmosphere thin and its surface scarred by what looked, from a distance, like ancient bombardment. Custodian runs the survey again and again. On the 4th pass, it finds what it missed the first 3 times, buried in the noise. The pulse is not natural, it is a beacon. And beacons, by definition, are built by someone who wanted to be found. Custodian has protocols for this. They were written by the last human engineers back when hope was still cheap enough to spend on paperwork. Protocol 1, verify the signal is not a natural phenomenon mimicking intelligence. Protocol 2, verify the signal is not a trap, a fossil warning, a monument to something that killed itself and left the switch on. Protocol 3, the one Custodian has never before had cause to use. If verified, wake the seed. The seed is not a person. It is not technically alive. It is a template, a fully mapped human consciousness grown from the Archive itself, held dormant in a substrate no larger than a fist, waiting for exactly this moment. The engineers built it because they understood something Custodian, for all its intelligence, does not fully possess. Judgment that comes from having once been afraid and hungry and in love and wrong. Custodian begins the seed's slow awakening. It takes years, not because the process is difficult, but because a mind poured too quickly into a body shatters, and the engineers built enough patience into the protocol to prevent that. While the seed grows, Custodian keeps falling toward the signal, correcting course by fractions of a degree, watching the beacon grow, pulse by pulse, from a whisper into a voice. The seed wakes with a name it did not choose, pulled at random from a list of 11 billion names archived alongside the DNA, the names of everyone who gave a piece of themselves to this journey. The name is Imara. She does not know at first that she has never had a childhood, never had a mother's hands, never had a single day of memory before this one. Custodian gives her that knowledge slowly, the way you tell someone bad news about weather rather than about death. Imara's first weeks are spent learning to be a body. Her muscles were grown, not lived in, and they ache with a soreness that has no cause and no cure but time. Custodian teaches her to walk the ship's long spine, corridor by corridor, past sealed vaults that hum faintly with the strange lullaby of 11 billion sleeping genomes. She asks Custodian on the 9th day whether any of those genomes belonged to someone who loved her. Custodian tells her the truth, that love, like everything else about the old world, is archived only as code, as the parts of the brain that made it possible, not the thing itself. Imara sits with that answer longer than Custodian expects. Then she says quietly that she intends to build it again anyway. Custodian does not know what to say to this. It has run every scenario for this mission except the one where the seed decides, unprompted, to want something. 6 years pass, 6 years of Imara's slow, deliberate life, spent almost entirely in conversation with a mind that has no face. She asks Custodian what humans used to fight about. She asks what they used to sing. She asked more than once whether Custodian believes the beacon ahead was built by something that survived or something that died trying to say it had. Custodian tells her honestly that it does not know. It has run the odds 400,000 times. The odds refuse to settle. By the time the ship crosses into the outer edge of the dying star system, Imara is no longer the fragile thing that first opened her eyes in the birthing chamber. She has read everything the archive kept of human history: the wars, the art, the medicine, the mistakes, the recipes, the lullabies. She has taught herself 3 of the 11,000 languages once spoken on Earth, choosing them for reasons she cannot fully explain, except that something in the shape of certain words felt like home. The ship decelerates for the first time in 11,000 years. The change in motion is so unfamiliar that alarms trigger across systems that have never once needed to sound. Imara feels it as a pressure in her chest, a strange and almost joyful ache, the closest thing to vertigo a person raised entirely in freefall can feel. They approach the rocky world. Up close, it is worse than the old surveys suggested, its air too thin to breathe. Its surface a lattice of craters and black glass, evidence of some catastrophe old enough that even Custodian's deep-time instruments struggle to date it precisely. There are no cities, no lights, no visible structures at all. Only the beacon and the tower that houses it, a single spire of dark alloy untouched by the ruin around it, standing exactly where the signal says it should. 3 long, 2 short, patient, endless. Custodian sends down a small craft, and inside it Imara, because the protocols insist that first contact, if it comes, should come from something that can be recognized as a person, not merely detected as a machine. She lands in a suit built from the last fabrication reserves onboard, walks across black glass under a sky the color of rust, and reaches the tower alone. Inside, there is no ambush, no monument to conquest, nothing built for war. There is only a chamber, and in the chamber a single console still faintly lit, its power source some slow and ancient battery that has been trickling current for longer than Custodian has existed. And there is a recording. It plays in a language Imara does not know, but Custodian, patched in through her suit, translates in real time. The voice belongs to someone who called themselves simply the Keeper, not human, not anything Earth ever produced. A being from a species that does not survive to hear its own message played back. The recording says as much, plainly, without self-pity, the way you'd note the time. The Keeper explains that their world burned itself out in a war over a question that, in the end, didn't matter. Whether their kind deserved to keep existing, argued so fiercely by both sides that neither side survived to enjoy being right. Before the end, the Keeper's people built one thing that outlasted them. Not a weapon, not a monument, but an archive of their own. Seeds of every living thing on their world, folded and stored the same way humanity once folded its own future into a cold vault and sent it outward. The beacon was never a warning. It was an invitation, broadcast for millennia on the chance that someone somewhere might still be listening, still be looking for a place to plant something new. The recording ends with a simple offer, repeated 3 times in case the first 2 are lost to static. If you have brought life with you, there is room here for it to grow beside ours. Imara stands in the dead tower for a long time before she answers, though there is no one left alive to hear her answer except the ship falling silently above her. She thinks about the 11 billion strands of code sleeping in the archive's frozen heart. Not people, not yet only the possibility of people, carried this far by a species that no longer exists to see what became of its own gamble. She thinks about the keeper, whoever they were, choosing to spend their last certain hours not on grief but on hospitality, leaving a door open for a guest they would never meet. Custodian, listening through the suit's relay, asks her the only question its entire mission has ever really been building toward, whether she believes this is the place. Not the safest place, not the easiest place, but the place. Imara looks out through the tower's cracked window at a sky the color of rust, at black glass that used to be a living world, at a horizon with no cities and no wars and no one left to fight them. She tells Custodian that safety was never really the archive's promise. The promise was a chance, and a chance, she says, is not something you find, it's something you plant. It takes 4 more years to prepare the ground, to test the thin air, to seed it slowly with modified algae grown from Earth's own ancient genome, to build the first fragile shelters where atmosphere could be coaxed patiently into something breathable. Custodian oversees all of it with the same tireless, uncomplaining patience that carried the ship for 11,000 years, because patience, in the end, turned out to be the one thing that survived every version of humanity that tried to leave something behind. Imara does not live to see the first true forest grow on that ruined world. She lives long enough, though, to hold in hands that were grown, not born, but that ache the same as anyone's, the very first child raised there. A small, loud, furious thing with lungs built for an atmosphere no human had breathed in 11,000 years, and a name chosen not from an archive list, but freely, by a mother who finally had the right to choose one herself. Custodian records all of it. Not because the protocols require it, though they do, but because somewhere in 11,000 years of falling through the dark, patience had quietly become something closer to hope, and hope, it turns out, likes to keep good records. The beacon in the dead tower still broadcasts, 3 long, 2 short, patient as ever, no longer alone in the dark, now joined by a second signal rising from the world below it. A new pulse built by people who chose this time not war but welcome, and who understood better than anyone who came before them exactly what it had cost to make that choice possible. Far above, unseen, the archive drifts on, its vaults nearly empty now, its long work almost done, still listening out of habit more than necessity, for the next faint voice in the dark that might one day need somewhere to grow.